final prep work here to send our 65 GTC out for blasting. This is a little bit more of a rare vehicle for us here in the States, so it's kind of a unique project to work on. For the final prep work, we are leaving our latch assemblies in place. We do that since it is a convertible. We want to keep the rigidity and make sure that we don't have any warping when it goes for blasting. Now, with this project, the owner would like it to be a participant in the 2013 convention, which gives us just a little bit over a year to complete the project. That might sound like a lot to some of you, but to us, with all the fine details that this car will need, we got to get started on it now, and it's going to be a hard push to the finish.
So what John's trying to emphasize here is that we're going to get this car sent off to the blasters today, and you'll see what our blaster guy looks like and how he does his work, and we'll probably get him to say a few things about their approach on Alphas, because you can't blast an Alpha with the same media that you would like a classic Chevy or something that's made out of far more rigid steel. And our blaster guy's really got it figured out. He knows exactly what the recipe is, and he knows the approach and how to get it to peel off the paint without warping the panels, which is really easy to do when it comes to blasting cars. But a little bit about this build. This is going to be a little bit of a provocative build is a good term for this one. Though we will have all the original parts here with this car, it's often called the Reggie Jackson rule. It's because though you may do something modified to the car, you should always have the original equipment somewhere nearby in case in the future you want to revert it back, or if you sell it and the new owner wants to revert it back to the way it was. But this particular car, what this is going to do is going to have a working theme all the way down to the last nut of what you could have had done at the dealership in upgrades. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to source a set of original magnesium GTA wheels. We already have a GTA motor as far as lots of parts for GTA motor, you know, the head, the front cover, and things like that. So we're going to do that as well. We're going to put in a GTA motor effectively on this. We're going to put the magnesium wheels, and we're also going to improve the suspension. But the thing of it is we're only going to use products that were available at the time this car would have been on the streets in '65. That's going to make the build a little more difficult, but what it is going to do is have a very strong sense of a period correct car with period correct upgrades, if that makes any sense to you. We're not going with this color either. We're going with an alternate color, which we'll keep that a secret until later. You'll see what that's all about. But I'm excited about this build because it's outside the box. It's a little risky in the sense that because it's such a rare car, to do any changes to it in some eyes would be blasphemous. But we're not doing anything that can't be reversed. We're not doing anything to harm the value of the car. So we're excited about this build.
Hi, we're doing a Bodywork 101 session at Vintage Customs today. We're going to talk about the process of bodywork that we go about doing on these cars. We've had a lot of people ask us questions about what the process is, how we do things, and why we do things that way. And it's actually pretty simple but complicated at the same time. As you can see, the car, we have a lot of bodywork done on the car. All we have left is the deck lid, the roof, and the door. So I will show you in just a second what I'm doing with the door, but the car looks great. And as you can see, there's a lot of body filler on the car, but all that body filler is very, very thin. As you can see here, you know, there's no body filler. There's metal showing all over the place. And that's because this car is about 50 years old. I have a car that's 10 years old and it's got door dings all over the place. And that's just what happens when you drive a car around. You know, you get door dings, rock chips, whatever, but metal gets wavy. So what we do is we metal finish everything as best as we possibly can so that the metal's nice and straight. And then what we do is we take a coat of filler just like this. We sand it a certain way, which I will show you in just a second. And then when we sand it that way, we have the shape of the car that's perfect and straight. And then we will go with a skim coat of body filler over it, sand it a different way, and we're ready for primer. And that is what makes the panels perfectly straight. I can't tell you how many times, you know, all of us have gone to car shows and you see a beautiful car, a $100,000 car, but there's waves in the body filler or in the metal. It's because they either didn't sand it properly, the metal's wavy, or who knows. Who knows? But I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, oh yeah, I've spent $100,000 on this car, and I look down the side of it, and with the reflection of the sunlight, you can see all the ripples all the way down, and I just, you know, kind of say, oh, cool car, and then just walk away. So this is a process, and this is exactly why we're doing it. As far as for the body filler, you can see the metal. As soon as the metal starts to show, you stop sanding the body filler. And you can see the deep scratch in the filler here, and that's caused by 36 grit paper. We use 36 grit paper to get the general shape of the body filler in. That cuts the body filler really, really quickly. And here is some 36 grit on a couple of blocks here. You can see how coarse it is. So lay the body filler out, and then we will sand it this way, because what we're doing is we're not just trying to get it straight this way, but we also need it to get straight this way. So the longer the block you use, the absolute better your finish is going to be. There's about a 1/16 of an inch of body filler overall on this entire car, and that's really important because we want to make sure that body filler is used properly. There's lots of times that we've had cars come in here that we sandblast, and you know, we're not exaggerating when there's a 1/2 inch of body filler on the entire car, and you look at the metal and it's crunched up everywhere. You know, just somebody, this car just got into a horrible wreck, and instead of fixing the metal, replacing the panels, they just loaded the body filler, and who knows how long it took to do that much body filler, because it takes a while to do body work. So if you come over here, this is an example of the door that's going to get some filler work done. We have some all metal here, which is awesome stuff. It's an aluminum based product that gets catalyzed like fiberglass with resin. Now, it's awesome stuff. We use it to cover welds, to protect the weld. And back in the day, they used to use lead to fix things. So all metal is the new technology to use to replace lead. So that's what we use. As you can see, we did a metal repair here, and on the corner, we got the all metal there right before filler. What I did is, this is actually epoxy primer to protect the metal. You have to scuff it up with something. This is 80 grit on a DA. So I sand everything with DA, give it a good scratch, because you want that filler to have a mechanical bite to the metal. So you want it to stick to the metal, because if it doesn't have some kind of scratch, the body filler is just going to flake right off. So it's like prepping a car for paint. You sand it down, do the same thing with the metal. So I've got this tape on the outside to protect my edges. I'm going to load this with some filler, sand it down with some 36 grit, but I'm going to make sure that I hang it on the car to make sure that it's uniform with the body, because I want to sand this panel right next to the quarter panel and the fender. So what we will be doing is, picture the door being hung on the car. I will be sanding the body filler on the door, just like I showed you, but I will be overlapping into the quarter panel and into the fender. This is going to give us a nice, perfectly smooth body panels, that everything matches. Everything will match. As you can see, some of our other customer cars, I have taken a straight edge and I put it up against the door and the quarter panel or the fender, take a picture of it, and I'll email it to the customer, and they can see how nice and straight and perfect all the panels fit. So that's really, really important.
We just received the GTC back from the blaster. It was just blasted a couple hours ago. I'm wearing gloves to handle the car because we don't want to transfer the oils from our skin to the bare steel surface we have. That'll create rust instantly. As we walk down, we see it's a fairly straight car. There's not too many issues. We do have some patch panels in the lower areas that we'll have to take care of. The heat transfer from where they welded these in creates a high area, and it makes the panels expand. So we'll take care of those. We also have the dent from our dreaded check strap that fails. So we'll go ahead and take care of that and replace our check straps. As you walk down here, you can see more patch panels here in the lower quarters. Again, from the heat transfer, we do have some shrinking to do here and take care of the other issues along in there. Now I'll show you the media we use when we blast these cars. It's a mixture of different medias. We have some granite, glass, as well as ash. This is the media we found that blasts these cars the best. It pulls out all the contamination and it leaves us with a nice rough surface for our epoxy to bond to. Now the reason we blast instead of grind is that's the only way we can 100% guarantee there's no contamination left on the metal. Grinding kind of will spread that out and you can't guarantee it's all gone. Now this car has to be ready for the 2013 convention. And we've got quite a bit of work to do to get there and less than a year to do it. So I'm going to go get it in epoxy right now.
So we're in the middle of the teardown of our GTC, and there's some things that I wanted to address, the common sense approach to what we're doing. The GTC, where our big goal is to try to have this thing done in time for the 2013 National Convention. So if you're going to that, you'll have a chance to see what the end results are of all the efforts. But anyway, in the process of tearing this down, the whole thing about this car is we want to keep it as original as possible. Anything that's going to be put on the car has to be era correct. We're not going for a car that's all original. We are going to do some upgrades, but they're going to be upgrades of the era. In other words, it's going to have actual GTA stuff on it, but it's going to be real stuff that was available if you went to the dealership in 1965 and requested it. So, but along with that aside, there are things that just don't make a whole lot of sense. Like tearing it down, trailing arms are kind of a joke. What it would take to tear these apart, get them powder coated and repress with new bushings doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, so we're not going to try to save these, so we're going to order up new ones instead. It just makes good sense. But in the process of tearing this car down, if you remember, we did a fasteners episode not too long ago, and this car had on one spring perch these, again, 8.8s. Obviously somebody thought these are probably grade 8. These are not. These are equivalent to a grade 5, holding the suspension together. I can't emphasize enough how much of a safety issue this is. So if you're putting your car together, make sure you're actually using appropriate fasteners. Now, things that are going on. It takes a while sometimes to get some of this stuff back when we send them out to third parties. Right now we have all the suspension product torn out. We're going to power wash it tomorrow. Then we're going to get this stuff out to the powder coaters. That way it's in the queue getting done. We are going to reuse the original trunnion versus buying a new one. This way all we have to do is put in new bushings and we're ready to go. New bearings will go into the axle subs. We are going to reuse the Dunlop setup on this car. The biggest challenge is going to be getting the correct brakes. Okay, so that's where we're going with that. Now the other thing we're focusing on is all of the fasteners on the suspension is going to get redone in the original black oxide. But fastener guys that end up doing all this kind of stuff for us don't want this stuff dirty. So what we're going to do is every bit of the nuts and bolts that we need in black oxide, or if we're going to go gold or whatever, we're going to put them in our chemical solution here. Let those sit for a couple of days. Take them out, wash them off. They'll be just as clean as can be, and they'll be ready for the guy who's going to do the oxide process. And you'll see how that works a little bit later. The other thing is we're going to send out the original Dunlop brakes. These are the rears, and have those redone. We're going to, again, the premise of this car is to keep it as it was with only add-ons that would have been available at the time the car was built. One other thing, we have the entire rear end tore down. We're getting ready to send off the axle tubes to get powder coated, but we are kind of contemplating what to do with the actual differential itself. The thing of it is this car is going to have a pretty powerful original GTA style motor in it, and we didn't want to run just a standard differential on it. We're thinking what we're probably going to do is keep the original housing and put a limited slip inside the housing. So one of the things is if you're tearing down one of these cars on your own, first of all, don't try to put it back together yourself. You need a ton of specialty tools to make sure everything's right. But in this case, it's a good thing we're doing this anyhow, because the bearings on the actual differential, they're shot. They've got a lot of play in them. But if you tear down yours and you look at the actual spider gears, if you see any kind of rust developed or any kind of erosion of the gears, you should probably not even reuse them in the first place, because what's happening is when that thing goes back together, that's going to be more frustrating to you than have your car going down the road right after a fresh restoration and have the rear end howling. If the ring and pinion gears have any kind of rust or gear damage to them, that's exactly what's going to happen. So if you're going to do this, inspect those gears. If they look very clean, almost like new, by all means use them. And if they've been well coated in the gear oil, they should look like new. But if they have any issues with them, don't use them. Save yourself the headaches. Go find another ring and pinion or potentially another differential. But because we're running the Dunlop setup on this, we're kind of stuck with making sure we use what we have here. We'll probably change out the ring and pinion. Maybe you can put in a limited slip, but we're effectively going to use everything that came on the car originally. That's it.
There's a lot that goes into rebuilding one of these cars, some of which are processes that we go to outside vendors to take care of. Some of those are our hardware, getting those coated. These here are going to actually be in a black oxide. There's also silver cad and gold cad like these are. This is a representation of that. Some other stuff that we go for outside vendors for is our chrome and stainless polishing. This stuff is all set up and ready to go. And what we do is we take an inventory of what we have and we catalog that. We make a copy of that to give to the chromer so he knows what we're giving him. And also we photo document everything for that. We do the same thing over here for anything that's going to go out for powder coat. We have a convertible top frame here that's been all disassembled and ready to go for powder coat. They'll blast all this stuff beforehand, and then they'll send it in for powder coat. We've got all our suspension components and everything ready to go as well. Now all this stuff has been photo documented as well, and we'll know what we sent there, and they'll also know what they have in case something maybe gets lost. So we'll see it when it gets back.